In this problem, I'm asked to write the standard form of the given equation. And the first thing I want to know is that this must be a hyperbola. The reason I know it's a hyperbola is because there's a negative sign in front of one of the squared terms. Okay, now if you know it's a hyperbola, you also next need to understand whether it's vertical or horizontal. And in this case, because the x squared term is positive and the positive terms are always going to go first in the hyperbola, I know this is horizontal. So all of the x squared terms have to come first, then the y squared terms. So my first step is to take the negative 163 and move it to the right-hand side. And then I'm going to put the x squared terms together. I'm going to make this 9x squared minus 90x. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to organize the y squareds together. So this is, and I'll do the plus blank and I'll factor that in a second. So I'm going to have minus 4y squared plus 32y. So I just sort of like reorganize this. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the square, but there's an annoying 9 in the front. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to factor it out of these two terms. This becomes 9 times the quantity x squared minus 10x, and I'm going to put a plus blank here and close the parentheses. All right, now in an equation, if I put a blank on the left-hand side, to balance it, I have to put a blank on the right-hand side. Okay, now what I'm going to do is the same thing for the y squared terms. Do you see that I could factor out a negative 4 from each of these terms? So I'm going to factor out a negative 4, and this becomes the quantity y squared minus 8y plus blank. Okay, and again, if I'm going to add a blank to the left, I have to add another blank to the right. So let's just make sure we can see that okay. Sorry, this is a little blurry somehow. Sorry about that. I don't know why that happened. Okay. All right, now we're set up to complete the square. So I'm going to take the negative 10, divide it by 2, negative 10 divided by 2, and square it. Okay, that's going to give me what? That's going to give me 25. I'm going to put a 25 on the left, but I have to be really careful. If I'm going to put a 25 here, I have to understand that's really 9 times 25. Right? And so 9 times 25 is really 225. So what I'm going to add to the right is a 225. And that's really important. A lot of people just like to write the plus 25, but it's actually 225. Okay, so then I'm going to take here, I'm going to take the negative 8, divide by 2, square it. And that's going to give me what? That's going to give me 16. Okay? But again, instead of adding a 16 to the right, I really need to add negative 4 times 16, and that's negative 64. Okay, so just to sort of recap, I think you can see this whole thing. What you want to make sure you're doing is organizing all the terms and factoring out the coefficients in front of the x squared and y squared. At this point, I can now write these trinomials as binomial squares. So I'm going to take the 9 and I'm going to make this trinomial the quantity x minus 5 squared. Okay, those are equivalent. I'm going to take the negative 4 and I'm making this trinomial the quantity y minus 4 squared. And then what I'm going to do is I'm adding up these three terms on the right, and that gives me positive, what does that give me? Positive 324. Okay, now my last step is to make the right-hand side equal 1. So I need to divide by 324, and you can use a calculator if you need for some of these calculations. Okay. And when you reduce your fractions, you're going to get, that's going to be 36. So you're going to get the quantity x minus 5 squared. Okay. If you divide 9 into 324, you're going to get 36. Okay, you're going to reduce that fraction, and that's going to be 81. So that's minus the quantity y minus 4 squared all over 81. and that's going to equal 1. This is a horizontal hyperbola. A squared equals 36, which means A equals 6. That's the distance from the center to the vertex. B squared is equal to 81, which means B equals 9. This is the distance from the center to the co-vertex. The center of this parabola is HK, and in this case, it's going to be 5, 4. So I hope you found that helpful. I'm going to probably try to do another example with factoring just so you get the hang of it. So in the next example, I'll do a similar problem where you have to do a lot of factoring. All right, I hope that made sense. And as always, please let me know if you have any questions.